Hello guys, welcome to Rebuild Academy. My name is Adil Momin and I welcome you to the 12th part of our series From Virus to Vaccine, Let's Fight Infodemic. I hope you all are doing well, fighting pandemic as well as infodemic. But before we begin, let me tell you a very important point. It is extremely important and highly recommended to watch this series in order. Only then you will get a complete idea and a clear picture of every concept involved. The link is given in the description. Now, let's begin. In a previous couple of videos, we talked about medical treatment methods in modern medicine. And till now, we have talked about preventive treatment in which we discussed COVID appropriate behavior and immunization. And we have discussed major aspects related to vaccination in the previous video. Today we will discuss mainly symptomatic treatment and curative treatment. So before starting symptomatic treatment, we will get ourselves introduced to few important terms that will help us to understand the symptomatic treatment. We will talk about steroids, anticoagulants, monoclonal antibodies, and plasma therapy. After which we will discuss different methods and strategies used for treatment of COVID. I also want to re-emphasize here the treatment procedure and protocols are dynamic and based on research and advancements, it is changing. The information provided here is for only information purpose. Your healthcare provider is in the best position to provide appropriate treatment based on your health condition. And lastly, we will talk about antiviral drugs. Okay then, let's begin. Steroids are man-made versions of naturally occurring hormones. Hormones are chemical substances that serve as messengers for controlling and coordinating activities throughout the body. Corticosteroids, which are often referred by the short term steroid, it is important to note that steroids used by some bodybuilders and athletes to build muscles and improve athletic performance are anabolic steroids and not corticosteroids. Using anabolic steroids this way without a prescription from a healthcare provider is not legal or safe. Corticosteroids are man-made drugs that closely resemble cortisol, a hormone that your adrenal glands produce naturally. Glucocorticoid and mineralocorticoid are two major classes of corticosteroids. Mineralocorticoid is a class of steroids that influences the salt and water balance in the body. Glucocorticoids are powerful medicines that fight inflammation and work with your immune system to treat a wide range of health problems. Your body actually makes its own glucocorticoids. These hormones have many jobs, one of which is curbing inflammation. Now let's briefly discuss inflammation. Inflammation happens when the body's immune system protects you from pathogens. Your body's WBCs release chemicals into your blood that increases blood flow to an area of the body, causing redness, warmth, swelling in that part of body. You may also feel pain, but in cases like an autoimmune disease like arthritis, the body triggers unnecessary inflammation. To treat this, we have to use anti-inflammatory drugs, one of which is glucocorticoid. Glucocorticoids are also used in cancer treatment for decades. The major glucocorticoid used in COVID treatment includes dexamethasone and methylprednisolone. These medicines are used to treat conditions such as arthritis, hormone disorder, allergic reactions, breathing problems, cancer, and immune system disorders. Moving forward, another important term is anticoagulant. They are also known as blood thinners. Anticoagulants are medicines that help prevent blood clots by prolonging the clotting time of blood. They are given to people at high risk of getting clots to reduce their chances of developing serious conditions such as strokes and heart attacks. Heparin, also known as unfractionated heparin, is a medication used as anticoagulant. Specifically, it is used in the treatment of heart attacks and unstable angina. Angina is a type of chest pain caused by reduced blood flow to the heart. Now let's talk about monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies are man-made antibodies that act like human antibodies in the immune system. They can be made in the laboratory by cloning the naturally occurring antibodies in humans. Researchers can design antibodies that specifically target a certain antigen, such as one found on cancer cells. They can then make many copies of that antibody in the laboratory. Monoclonal antibodies are used to treat many diseases, including some type of cancers. Sometimes the combination of two antibodies is used, known as antibody cocktail. In the case of COVID treatment, monoclonal antibodies are used in mild to moderate cases. Currently available monoclonal antibodies for COVID treatment include bamlanivimab and etesevimab, which is a combination of two monoclonal antibodies made by Eli Lilly and Company. These antibodies are designed to target the surface spike proteins of SARS-CoV-2. The company has claimed the therapy has reduced the risk of hospitalization and deaths by 87%, but FDA has revoked the emergency use authorization that allowed for the investigational monoclonal antibody therapy bamlanivimab in April 2021. Another antibody cocktail is RHINE-CoV-2, which is a combination of two monoclonal antibodies, casirivimab and imdevimab, made by company Regeneron Pharmaceuticals. The company has claimed efficacy of 70%. Tocilizumab is an anti-interleukin 6 receptor monoclonal antibody. Interleukin IL-6 is a cytokine with multiple biological activities. It contributes to host defense against pathogens, whereas accelerated production of IL-6 plays a significant pathological role in various diseases. Tocilizumab has been approved for the treatment of multiple inflammatory diseases and appeared to improve outcomes in patients with COVID-19 pneumonia in observational studies in United States and globally. There are many monoclonal antibodies available and some are under research, but these are costly. A monoclonal antibody therapy costs more than 50,000 rupees in India today, which is out of reach for majority of the people. If they are made available at a reasonable price, then it can increase its reach. Another important term is plasma therapy. In this method, blood is donated by people who have recovered from COVID and have high antibody levels in their blood. The donated blood is processed to remove blood cells, leaving behind liquid plasma and antibodies. These can be given to the people with COVID-19 to boost their ability to fight the virus. Plasma therapy may be given to people with COVID-19 who are in the hospital and are early in their illness or have a weak immune system, and it is expected that plasma therapy may help people recover from COVID by reducing the severity or shortening the length of disease. But in case of COVID, several international trials had found no benefit from plasma therapy. The study published in British Medical Journal, The Lancet, in May 2021 reported that in a double-blinded trial involving about 5,000 patients who got the treatment in United Kingdom gained no benefit in reducing mortality or improving patient outcome. In fact, some experts have said use of such plasma may have even played a role in facilitating new worrisome mutations to the virus. Therefore, ICMR has dropped plasma therapy from the recommended treatment guidelines for COVID-19. So these were some of the important points that I wanted to discuss. Now let's move to symptomatic treatment. Based on the severity of symptoms, the infection cases are classified into three categories: mild, moderate, and severe. If you have influenza-like symptoms like fever, cough, sneezing without shortness of breath, then such cases are classified as mild cases. If you feel shortness of breath and your breathing rate is more than 24 per minute, or your oxygen level is between 90 to 93%, then it can be classified as moderate case. If the respiratory rate is more than 30 per minute, that is, if you are breathing more than 30 times in 1 minute, or oxygen level has fallen below 90%, then it can be a case of severe infection. These criteria are mentioned in guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare of Indian government in May 2021. So these are not permanent criteria. These are periodically revised based on recent medical evidence. It is important to note that out of total infections, 80% are mild, 15% are moderate, and only 5% are severe in nature. Now, if we talk about treatment strategy for mild cases, then it includes home isolation and care. Such patients are advised to take preventive measures, and based on their symptoms, they are prescribed antipyretic for fever, antitussive for cough, and multivitamins. Symptoms and conditions are also monitored through temperature and oxygen level measurements. Hydroxychloroquine can also be used in certain cases of symptom management. It is recommended that people with mild infections should be in contact with their doctors and informing them regarding their condition so that proper treatment can be obtained. Moderate cases require hospitalization, but they may not need ICU for treatment. Moderate cases may require oxygen support. A non-rebreather mask is used to assist the oxygen delivery. NRB mask allows unassisted high-concentration oxygen supply. Based on the patient condition, anti-inflammatory or immunomodulatory therapy may be used to control the inflammation in the lungs or other parts of the body. Anticoagulants like heparin can be used for avoiding blood clotting. Monoclonal antibodies can also be used in moderate cases of infection. Clinical monitoring is done to several measures, including monitoring oxygen requirement. Based on the condition of patient, lab tests and imaging tests can be performed. Severe cases of infection require admission to ICU, and patients possibly require a ventilator for keeping them breathing. A ventilator is a device that supports or recreates the process of breathing by pumping air into the lungs. There are different types of ventilators, and each provides varying level of support. The type a doctor uses will depend on the person's condition. Ventilators play an important role in saving lives, both in hospitals and ambulances. Face mask ventilators are non-invasive, while mechanical ventilators are invasive and work via tubes inserted into throat. This is known as intubation. For some, a face mask ventilator may be sufficient to stabilize their condition. People who physically struggle to breathe independently may require mechanical ventilation. Based on conditions and requirements, the patient can be administered anti-inflammatory or immunomodulatory therapy and anticoagulants. In case of septic shock, treatment is provided as per existing standard protocols. Continuous monitoring is done to assess the condition and ensure the stability of the patient. So, this concludes our discussion on symptomatic treatment strategies. Now let's talk about curative treatment. Curative treatment refers to a treatment provided with the main intent of fully resolving an illness and the goal of bringing the patient, ideally, to their status of health before the illness presented itself. For instance, when a patient receives curative treatment for cancer, the goal is for any anatomical evidence of cancer to disappear and for that patient's overall health to return to its status from before the cancer was diagnosed. Antiviral drugs can be used as a curative treatment for viral infections. We know that antibiotics don't work for viral infection because viruses are not organisms in the true sense. But let us see how antibiotics work against bacterial infection. There are a couple of ways antibiotics might work. Some attack the cell wall of the bacteria, thus effectively killing them. Some might contain an enzyme that prevents DNA replication. Others might inhibit protein synthesis by molecular binding. Now, you might have often heard that viruses are hard to kill. Why so? There are a couple of reasons for that. The first one is viruses are not like any other living things. They are inactive when found in isolation and only becomes active inside the other organisms. This makes them harder to target, and since they replicate inside the host cell, if you try to kill them, there are always chances that you will end up damaging host cells. So, you can't directly kill them like bacteria. Instead, we can target one or more stages of their life cycle to slow their progress and give our immune system more time to fight back. There are a couple of ways to do this. The first one is fusion inhibitors. These are a class of antiviral drugs that prevent the virus from fusing with the cell receptors, thus effectively preventing it from entering the cell and causing infection. On the same line, uncoating inhibitors can stop uncoating of the virus, thus preventing the virus from releasing its genetic material inside the cell. Reverse transcription inhibitors or RTIs are one of the classes of antiviral drugs. It interferes with the ability of a virus to multiply or reproduce. RTIs work by blocking an enzyme needed by the virus to make copies of itself. After the virus enters the cell, it begins to copy itself. To do so, it needs to copy its RNA into DNA. This process is called reverse transcription and requires an enzyme called reverse transcriptase. RTIs prevent the virus's reverse transcriptase from accurately copying its RNA into DNA. Without DNA, the virus can't make copies of itself, thus inhibiting its replication. Antiviral drug remdesivir works by this mechanism. Remdesivir uses nucleotide analogues for terminating viral DNA replication. It was originally developed to treat hepatitis C and was subsequently investigated for Ebola virus disease before being studied as a treatment for COVID. Remdesivir is the only antiviral drug approved by the FDA for the treatment of COVID, but WHO has issued a conditional recommendation against the use of remdesivir in hospitalized patients, regardless of disease severity, as there is currently no evidence that remdesivir improves survival and other outcomes in these patients. Another class of antiviral drugs is integrase inhibitors, which obstruct the viral DNA from reaching the host cell nucleus, whereas protease inhibitors can hinder the assembling packaging stage of the viral replication cycle, thus effectively hampering the formation of new viruses. In this way, different classes of antiviral drugs have different ways to impede viral replication by targeting different stages of its life cycle. There is one drug that was the talk of the town, hydroxychloroquine. It is an antiparasitic drug used in the treatment of malaria. It is also used in the treatment of autoimmune diseases, but in case of COVID-19, the drug is not found to be useful. It has neither exhibited any antiviral effects nor helped in reducing mortality. So this sums up our discussion on treatment methods of COVID-19. We have discussed all the three: preventive, symptomatic, and curative methods of treatment. We have talked from COVID-appropriate behavior till antiviral drugs, and what we can learn from this discussion is currently there is no cure for COVID. And looking at the variants, it will not be easy to develop an antiviral drug that will be effective against all the variants. So, this leaves us with the only most suitable and effective option of the vaccine. Uniform global vaccination is the key, right? So this brings us to the end of today's discussion. Now, as usual, let's quickly revise the topics we discussed today. We started our discussion with steroids. We learned that dexamethasone and methylprednisolone are glucocorticoids that helps in interrupting inflammation in the treatment of autoimmune diseases like arthritis. Then we discussed anticoagulants like heparin used for preventing blood clotting, after which we talked about monoclonal antibodies, which are artificially made antibodies. We also saw some of the antibody cocktails available for COVID treatment. Then we discussed plasma therapy and learned that it is not effective for COVID treatment. Moving forward, we talked about symptomatic treatment strategies for mild, moderate, and severe cases of COVID. And in the end, we discussed antiviral drugs and how they work. In the upcoming video, we will be discussing post-COVID conditions, including long COVID and mucormycosis, commonly known as black fungus. So make sure you subscribe the channel and press the bell icon for timely notifications. If you enjoyed and learned something from this video, then make sure that you like the video and share it with others so that we all work together and battle the infodemic. If you have any suggestions, you can comment below. That's all for now. We will meet in the next video. Stay safe, stay connected.